Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be directly comparing two different eyeshadow palettes. I'm going to be comparing the Dirty Martini palette from Glamlight, which has long been my favorite green palette, to a new acquisition, the Stone and Rock from Uden's Eye. I'll be swatching these two palettes side by side, seeing how similar they are, and deciding whether or not I actually want to keep both of them. I did use one of these palettes to do today's eyeshadow look, and towards the end of the video, after all the swatches, I'm going to show you a quick tutorial of the eyeshadow look itself. But I want to directly compare these two palettes because this is the Dirty Martini from Glamlight. It was when they did the happy hour collection with 4 different alcoholic beverage themed palettes. This is the only one that I bought, and I loved it immediately. I mean, I was so into this color story. It's just beautiful. This is my favorite shade right here. The formula is amazing. Glamlight has a great formula. They really do. It's just a nicely balanced, very heavily green palette. A couple pops of blue, some really cool metallics. It's a great palette, and I've gotten a good amount of use from this palette. I do have a Glamlight playlist, which I'll link down below in the description box. I also have an Uden's Eye playlist, which I will also link. Uden's Eye, last spring, I think, they released 2 palettes in this series. Stone and Rock was one of them, and then Jewels and Gems was the other. I do have both. I recently got these. These were the last palettes that I bought in 2023, and I love green. I love green. Green is my favorite color, and it's my favorite eyeshadow color to play with, and I was kind of smitten with this palette as well. I mean, it's just such a nicely balanced, green leaning, but neutral as well sort of palette. It's got white and black, both of which are great. I wanted to compare Dirty Martini to Stone and Rock and see how they are side by side. Do we have a lot of color overlap? Because that was the reason I waited to buy this one. I knew that there were a lot of similar colors in this one, and it's, like I said, it's been a favorite. It's a great formula. You know, do I need both? Do I need both? It's just eyeshadow, nobody needs it. But do I want to keep both, where I try to keep my palette collection curated and not have duplicates? This is really a battle of the formulas, I think. And I have a feeling that I know who's gonna win, but I might still end up keeping both if there's enough variety between the two. So my daughter is currently eating breakfast and my baby's currently sleeping. I'm going to swatch these and just see how close they are. I know that there's not a matte white or a matte black in the Dirty Martini, so we'll move on. In the first couple colors of this palette, this is sort of a silver blue white kind of shimmer. Nothing like that in Dirty Martini. In Dirty Martini, we do have the Just a Splash shade. Is that what it's called? No, On the Rocks. But this one is definitely more blue and silver. It's way more blue. I guess we can compare them. I guess we can. Let's do it. Let's do it because it's going to be fun. So we've got On the Rocks here from Dirty Martini, and then this is Frenzy from Uden's Eye. So let's do Dirty Martini up high. Dirty Martini and then Frenzy. They're both really pretty, and I guess they're similar in vibe, but they're definitely different. Then we have this shade here called Madness, and I know that there's not anything quite like that in Dirty Martini. The closest I could come to is probably Green Olive. That is my favorite shade in the palette. So Green Olive is on top here. Glamlight Green Olive, and then the Uden's Eye Madness. Way more yellow. So pretty together, but definitely a lot more yellow. So no dupes yet. In Stone and Rock, I've got the shade Passion, which is a beautiful forest green brown kind of shimmer. And then Dirty Martini has, I think this one. I'm not sure if it's this one or this. So I'll swatch both of them. Olive Lover and Vodkatini. Because the Uden's Eye shimmer is kind of between them. So here's the Uden's Eye on the bottom. And then here we've got Olive Lover and Vodka Martini on the top. Oops. Oh, shoot. Oops. Okay, so Uden's Eye on the bottom, again, is kind of a mix between the two. Maybe it has a bit more brown. Olive Lover is much deeper, like a black brown, and the Martini shade is green with little yellowy reflects. Super pretty. Not quite the same. Here we've got the shade Cheer in the Uden's Eye palette. Deep, yeah, the closest one in Dirty Martini would be Mix It Up, and Mix It Up is much more blue. Here's Mix It Up on top with the Glamlight, and then Cheer on the bottom. Look at the swatches, though. Look at the way that sucker swatches. Amazing formula. Amazing. They're close. Uden's Eye is definitely a bit more what's the difference? It's kind of like a murkier sort of blue, whereas the Dirty Martini is a very, very clear, deep teal shade. Super pretty. On to the next row, we have this shade here, which is called Cheerfulness. And I'm going to compare that to Crisp over here. So on the bottom, we have Cheerfulness from Oud and Zai and Crisp from Dirty Martini. Still quite different. Crisp, again, has sort of a blackened brown quality to it, and this one is more of a sage gold. It's actually a really good match to my shirt, but it's metallic. It's got some sparkle to it. Very pretty, but not a dupe yet. So far, what I'm getting is that the palettes are quite similar in general color story, but how close are they in actual colors? Let's do this one here. This is called Exuberance. And I'm going to compare that to Dry Vermouth. Exuberance and Dry Vermouth. Ooh, those two are close. I think Exuberance might have a tad more yellow in it, but they're very similar. How's your cereal, baby? Moving on, we have this shade Gleefulness. This is a much creamier, flakier formula from Oud and Zai. It's the type, I mean, it's all over my finger. It picked up a lot, and part of that was I was going in and pushing down a bit as I went, because when I used this shade for my eye look today, I saw that it was a little bit more mobile in the pan. So anyway, what did I say that was called? Gleefulness. The names in the Oud and Zai palettes. Come on, guys. Really? Elatedness and elation? Okay. Gleefulness is going to compare to, I think, High Class. Just a Splash is too orange, so I'm gonna oh, why don't I do both? High Class and Just a Splash. So originally we have Gleefulness on the Oud and Zai side, High Class and Just a Splash. Yeah, like I said, it was too orange. They're not similar at all. Jubilance in the Oud and Zai palette might compare to, no, there's nothing in Dirty Martini that would work with that. This is much more of a, this is like a hella shade, you know, this is like a brown yellow kind of color. I see this more in a shimmer, like in this shimmer here. Do you see? It's a lot more orangey brown. So there's no matte at all in Dirty Martini, which compares to that. This is the shade Lightheartedness. It's kind of like a chocolate brown shimmer. And again, I'm going to have to just compare that to Olive Lover, because there's nothing else in here that's making me think chocolate brown shimmer. So here is the Oud and Zai color, and again, Olive Lover. It's much closer, but Olive Lover has a lot more green in it. And the final row, we're going to look at Dreamland here, which was the first matte that I started with today. That, again, it has to be compared to Dry Vermouth. I mean, it's... all right, let's do Dry Vermouth and Extra Dirty, and it's somewhere in the middle. Dreamland, Dry Vermouth, and Extra Dirty. Close. It has kind of the undertones of both of them put together. This shade right here is called High Spirits. It's kind of like a peacocky shimmer. It is a blue-green duochrome at least, and there's nothing in Dirty Martini that even sort of resembles that. This is the bluish shimmer that I have, and it's more of a Caribbean sort of blue, whereas this one, can you see? I don't know if you can see the shift. It's a blue-green. It's very peacocky. It's very pretty, but I'm not going to bother swatching it because it's immaterial to today's video. We have Elevated, which is a dark chocolate brown matte. And again, the only thing in here that I could compare it to, I think, is Dirty Martini, but we know very well that that's not going to be a fair comparison. So here's Elevated and Dirty Martini, or Dry, whatever it was. Yeah, again, very close. And you know I just swatched that one over here for the other shades. So the penultimate shade on the palette, this is called Splendid. Oh, it's so pretty. It is a black silver sparkle, sort of metallic. There is nothing in Dirty Martini like that. I mean, again, maybe kind of crisp, but we swatched Crisp over here. I can do it. I know that they're not even comparable, but I'll do it. Why not? So here's Crisp from Glamlight and Splendid from Uden's Eye. Yeah, no. All right, Crisp from Glamlight and Splendid. And Splendid is definitely a richer color, and it has kind of the black base with a whole bunch of silver sparkle, whereas Crisp looks a little bit more charcoaly brown, if that makes sense. I hope you guys are able to see. Swatching can be so awkward, and some people do it really well. I'm not one of those people, but I'm trying. So the final shade to look at today is this black, oh, we don't even need to. It's a black matte called Passage. I also used this in my eyes today. So there's no black matte in Dirty Martini. And I think, have we? We never swatched Chilled because it's kind of a pink shimmer and there's nothing in Uden's Eye that would compare to that. We never swatched Gin for the same reason. We didn't swatch Classic either. This is just a soft, steely gray blue kind of color. There's nothing in Uden's Eye that works with that one. I think that's it. I think I swatched all the other colors, and I know that I swatched everything that I could in the Uden's Eye palette. So here are the palettes next to each other. I actually had a little bit more trouble than I expected to in finding direct comparisons. What this is telling me, I mean, they're very, very similar. They're like twins, but they're not dupes. You're definitely gonna get the vibes. At this point, I have to decide, is there one that I prefer over the other? Do I really like the variety in different color stories? I mean, the Dirty Martini palette has that small section of blue, which the Uden's Eye palette does not have. So now I need to decide, is it worth keeping both? This shadow here has always been my favorite in the palette. I love it, and it's not represented in Uden's Eye. This one's much more yellow, and I don't look as good in yellowy based greens and browns. A couple of the other tones are something that I might find in the Hella palette, like this one over here, and then this shade right here. This is such a stunning, like this would be beautiful with the multichrome. You know what? Just for fun, because it's a multichrome, let's swatch this shade here. What did I say it was called? High Spirits. Let's swatch it just for kicks. Oh, it's got purple in it too. Okay, I'm gonna swatch it. I wish it had more sparkle. It feels more like a traditional shimmer in smoothness. It's not as sparkly as what I'm used to from Uden's Eye, but it is pretty. It's a blue, purple, green sort of color. So this one would look beautiful with these two right here. As I'm looking at this on my arm, I'm thinking it would be really fun to use these palettes together, but does that even make sense? Because are they close enough? I don't know. They're very close. Like, they're really close. I expected that this would be a very conclusive video for me. I expected to have a clear-cut answer. Like, they're too different and it's worth keeping both, or they're too similar and I don't need to keep both. But I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm gonna get really, really similar looks from them. But when I directly compared shade to shade, there were lots of differences. And I know the difference in formula. I love the Uden's Eye formula, but Glamlight has an excellent formula. But I recently decided to get rid of my other Glamlight because of the shimmers. However, I like the shimmers in the Dirty Martini palette more, and I think it might have to do with them being more neutral-ish, so that high shine, wet, oily looking finish that Glamlight has doesn't bother me as much in the more neutral tones as it does in the colorful shades. The Dirty Martini palette is definitely more neutral leaning because green is kind of a neutral color, right? And a lot of the shimmers are brownish or chocolatey or tannish. I don't know. Let me show you my eyeshadow tutorial really quickly and then we'll close out this video. I started by taking a medium blending brush into the shade Dreamland and I worked that through my whole crease. This is just a nice soft transition color. Then I took a denser blending brush and picked up the shade Elevated, and I used this to deepen out my outer corner. And then I took a much smaller blending brush and the black matte in the palette, which is called Passage. I used this in my outer corner even more, and then blended it all together. Of course, the next thing to do was to pick up some shimmers, so first I laid down Cheerfulness and sprayed it, and then I used Gleefulness at the inner third. Gleefulness is the one that was much smoother and creamy in the pan, so I made sure I gave that some extra love and attention. In the outer lower lash line, I started with Dreamland, then I dipped into Madness on the inner lower lash line, and I used Fervor, of course, the white matte, as an inner corner highlight. In my waterline then, I took a dark green from ColourPop. This is called Canopy. To finish off today's look, I only put mascara on the eyes. On my lips, I'm wearing the Italia Deluxe Fine Lip Liner in the shade 1064 Hazelnut. And on my face, I have a little bit of bronzer. This is Physicians Formula. Yeah, everything's linked down below. Everything is down below in the description box. I have a blush from ColourPop's Mulan collection. The shade is called Matchmaker. It's quite cool toned and not very blushy, but it does the trick if I want something a little softer or not as colored, you know, not pink, not berry, etc. And then I have a bit of highlighter from the Frosé highlighter palette from BH Cosmetics. I really like today's eyeshadow look. I just love the Udenzai formula. The mattes blended so effortlessly. I know browns are easier to formulate than colors. These were so good. These were like Sydney Grace kind of quality, or the browns in the BH Cosmetics Blueberry Muffin palette. Those brown, amazing, just amazing. And then the shimmers, they're sparkly, they're light, they're colored, but they're not over the top. I love the way that it all turned out. I absolutely adore the white matte in that palette. I think every time I've used the palette so far, I've used that white matte for an inner corner highlight because it's pigmented and it's buildable. It's quite impactful. It's really good quality. And then, of course, there's a matte black, which is great as well because you can go quieter or you can go deeper or smoky. The black gives you that versatility. So I know for sure that I really like this palette. There's no question. There was no question going into it, honestly. The question still remains, do I keep this one? I think for now I'm going to keep it, and maybe I'll use them together and see if that brings any value or if it's just kind of redundant, like, okay, well, you could still have gotten that look with this palette. The only variety I see there would be the blues. You know, if I use the blues from this, I can't get them from the Stone and Rock palette. So I don't know. I think I'm going to keep them both for a while, and I think that I'm going to try to use the Glam Light shimmers without spraying them. Spraying a shimmer makes it more foiled and metallic. So if I want to downplay the foil and metallic features of a Glam Light shimmer, maybe I should just use them dry. And then if I use them dry, aren't I just getting the same result as Udenzai? I hope this video has been interesting to you, if perhaps even helpful if you have these two palettes and you too were wondering the same thing. Thank you for clicking on my channel. I hope you will consider liking and subscribing before you go. It's good for the channel, and if you like this kind of content, maybe you want to come back and see more. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.